CLS Talks.
Talk to me. Talk to me. Talk to me. Talk to me.
Real information.
Talk to me.
Real education.
Talk to me.
CLS.
Talk to me. They don't talk to me. They look like that morning. They don't talk to me. They back that morning. They don't talk to me. They back that morning. They don't talk to me. They back that morning.
CLS.
Welcome back to the CLS Talks with myself, Lionel Coveney, and Des Carty. We're in the middle of our book, The Gary Doyle Order, and as I continue to harp on about, we go off on all kinds of different tangents and discuss lots and lots of bits and pieces as we're working our way through the book, or as we begin to work our way through the book. There's one more little kind of forward to the book itself, and that's the issue. We've already described that Tom was stopped on the side of the road by the Gardaí, then allowed to move on again and stopped for a second time before he was arrested. But the issue of whether or not Tom actually did stop rears its head in the case, and it's very important that we clarify it, I think, from the outset. So, Des, did Tom stop on the side of the road the first time he was signalled to do so by the Gardaí?
Okay, Lionel, by addressing that, I'll just go around the houses a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay? Just take a little diversion. We are now into chapter 2, and the reference point we're looking at here would be on page 19, the last couple of paragraphs, wherein it states, and I'll just read this out verbatim. We're not going to read the whole book out verbatim, but where it's important. Now, as Lionel has suggested, this is a key element of the whole case. And latterly in the book, we talk about the big lie. There's a big lie told. And in any case, every case, if you find the accuser, the plaintiff, whatever it might be, if you catch them out on one lie, their whole case can be taken apart. So always look out for the big lie. There's a lie in every case. None of these characters are perfect. So the lie here, we'll read it out, then latterly, I think you should go back again, have another listen to this specific podcast, this specific recording, and remind yourselves. We'll try and remind the listeners as well as we go. So it states here in the book on page 19, the Garda was standing in the middle of the road and indicating with his hand gestures that he wished me to slow down and stop. So that is what happened, and the handbrake was engaged for safety. Then the Garda walked across from where he stood in the middle of the road, across the road in front of me, and seemed to be looking at the bits of papers on the windscreen. By all accounts, he seemed happy enough with his lot, and then he walked back across in front of me to his original position in the middle of the road. Then he indicated with more hand gestures to proceed along. All was well with the world.
So I think it's safe to assume that it was a routine stop. There was a checkpoint set up. The Garda appeared to check for tax insurance and all those other little bits and pieces, was happy with it and allowed Tom to continue on his merry way.
Absolutely. Now, that is a key point, as we suggest, and it'll be brought in terms of the court proceedings and cross-examination, the whole lot. Now, there's another point there that I'll raise with the listeners, and I would like the listeners, as an exercise for themselves, to go off and examine this in terms of what you call a roadblock or a road stoppage, whatever you want to call it. In law, how can the Garda Síochána do that? How can they perform that? How can they create a roadblock? There's certain given laws under which they can perform that operation. Okay, so if you look at the legislation, now I won't explain on this yet or expand on it yet, because in the book latterly we talk about it and what this means. So I want the listeners to go now and research the law in relation to when Garda Síochána can stop people on the road like that. Very important.
Just as a little footnote, I'll tell you one incident where they can't do it, because I checked it out after experiencing this. Only last week, and bear in mind that we've been in the midst of a general election for the last number of weeks, on a country road, I won't say exactly where, which experiences very little traffic.
Country?
I won't even say what country. It has a flag though. Myself and a companion were travelling along the road and encountered 4 Gardaí, 2 squad cars and 4 Gardaí standing in the middle of the road. And we stopped And the guard inquired as to our well-being. We said we're very well. How are you getting on yourself? Grand pleasantries exchanged. Didn't go near the insurance tax, anything like that. Just handed us an A4 flyer, double-sided A4 flyer. On one side of it, it was tips on road safety, and a very badly designed flyer full of mistakes as well. Tips on road safety. And immediately, I didn't say anything, but immediately I thought, well, one of the least safe things you can be doing is standing on the middle of the road when there are cars coming along. But anyway, on the other side was then rural crime and statistics on rural crime and how the government has been tackling rural crime. And there were tips on, for example, they broke down the areas of a house that are most broken into. So 22%, for example, this is off the top of my head, may have been the back door, and 23% through an upstairs open window, this kind of thing. Interestingly, they had a section for other methods, which was, I don't know, somewhere down 4 or 5% or whatever. Added them all up, it didn't even amount to 100%. So, I mean, the figures were completely wrong. But I just thought, clearly, this is what the Gardaí are being instructed, and they were senior Gardaí, they're being instructed to do, to try and garner votes, to show how proactive they are with an election looming. So that's just a footnote on what you were talking about. A little anecdote just that came to mind as you were speaking about it there. Roadblocks, etc., etc. So moving on from Tom's roadblock, he continued upon his merry way, as I said, and a Garda car then followed him. He noticed 2 or 3 minutes later a Garda car in the mirror, and the flashy lights went on and the sirens were on, and Tom was pulled over again. Why was he pulled over?
Well, why don't we cover the dialogue that's in the book?
Good idea.
I'll be the guard. This starts on page 21 for the listeners. So we'll start with me. So as you alluded to, Lionel, the Garda followed him in a car and he pulled over. So it's your start, isn't it?
What's up, Garda?
What's your name?
Is there an emergency?
There's no emergency. Just give me your name.
Well, what do you need a name for?
Never mind all that. Get out of the fucking car.
Calm down, Garda. Why do you want me to get out?
Because I told you.
Well, okay, let's get this on the record then. I've a recording device here. What's the purpose, Garda?
I want to check your driving licence and insurance.
What's your name, Garda?
Garda Kieran Mahoney is my name. Traffic Corps LY124. I'll be the transport police. Could you move your vehicle and wind down your clock? Sorry, down.
Are you detaining me, Garda? Are you detaining me right now?
In accordance with the Road Traffic Act, I'm asking you to pull your vehicle in. I am detaining you for the purpose. I'm not arresting you. I'm detaining you as I'm entitled to do under the law.
Am I free to go?
No, you're not free to go. I've directed you to pull in.
So are you detaining me?
Yes, I'm detaining you.
And are you arresting me?
No, I'm detaining you for the purpose.
So what is the purpose?
Get out of that car now.
Garda, the Garda is attacking me now and is trying to drag me from the car.
Get out of that fucking car.
Garda, why are you attacking me?
Just get out of the car and you will find out.
There's a Garda here assaulting me. He's very angry. He's trying to pull me out of the car and I'm afraid.
You better get out of that car now.
Garda, you really are scaring me. I'm going to leave now to get to a safe place.
Don't you fucking drive off.
For your own safety, Garda, take your foot out of the door. I'm pulling away now.
That was it. That's the dialogue.
That's not a nice position to be in if you're stuck in the car. I mean, no clarity, no answers to any questions, which Tom is entitled to get. And genuine, it's lucky he had that recording device and was able to put this on the record, but genuinely was afraid and didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, now, again, the book elaborates every so often in terms of the dialogue and what was physically happening to Tom at the time. And this was again brought up in the court, but again, I think it's referred to in the book, whereby the guard forced the car door opened and was trying to drag Tom out of the car. Now, the way he opened the door, apparently, was he put his hand into the open window that was partially open and pulled up the lock mechanism of the door. Now, given that there is a recording of the events, you can hear when the guard approaches, he's trying to open the door.
Right.
But the door isn't open
from the outside.
From the outside,
yeah.
but because it isn't unlocked. And the only way it can be unlocked is if the latch is pulled up on the inside.
Yeah.
So that is laterally brought up in the court proceedings. But again, it's worth noting, I mean, in terms of the dynamics of what happened there, that's the serious criminal elements on behalf of what the guard did in terms of his actions. He approached, he trespassed, he abused, he assaulted. I mean, that's all very, very serious. The serious elements of crime in that.
And at this point then, is Tom arrested? Is he dragged out of the car? What happens then?
Well, why don't we leave that till the next section? I think we're well into the time now, but if we leave that till the next section, we can continue on. But from the dynamics of what happened there was an assault took place by the guard. There was an attempt to drag Tom out of the car. Tom basically got the door closed. He pulled away slowly from the area, and then laterally he was being pursued by the guards at, I think the book states that it was at 30 miles an hour or 60, it states clearly it was under the speed limit and all that, so it wasn't a high speed pursuit or anything like that. So the guards did pursue him after that event.
It just sounds to me like such an intimidating scenario. I'm trying to put myself in that scenario, and Tom handled that very well from what I can see. I mean, he seemed to have a presence of mind. He did try to get things on the record, and he recorded successfully what was going on. And I think it's very lucky that he did, because who knows what could be said or what may be said as we proceed with the book in court. And without some kind of proof or rebuttal, he's in a spot of bother there, because clearly this guard has it in for him for whatever reason.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, not just in terms of these types of things when you're out on the road and you're travelling wherever you're going, to have some sort of device that can record what's going on, be it the phone, that might be enough. But I think everybody, unfortunately, I think that's the position everybody should put themselves in, is to have the sort of security measure of having a device to record what's going on. Similarly, not saying that you should go into court and record what's going on in terms of digital recording, but certainly take a very accurate record. We're constantly saying that to people, and 9 times out of 10 you'll find by listening back on the events that are recorded or you have on record, you'll find there's something seriously wrong with what was said or done, be it in the court or be it when you're talking to a guard. They're not doing their job per se, because they should not be attacking people. It's that simple.
So this comes back then to the very essence of the Gary Doyle Order itself, as opposed to the book, The Gary Doyle Order, and that is arm yourself with all the information so that you can then use that, so that you can then, if you need to show others, be it the court or whoever it is your adversary is, that you have got the information, you know what's going on, and they had better be on their best behaviour. Yeah.
Look, the way we're doing this, Lionel, is we're trying to explain to people in step-by-step process. So again, I keep saying to people, go back over the previous recordings, the previous podcasts, previous YouTube recordings, and listen again and listen again.
Yeah.
Because by having, say, the recording that was taken on the day with the guard and what he did, Tom was able to listen back. He didn't just listen back once. He listened back a second time, a third time, a 10, up to, like, there was an innumerate amount of times he would listen to that recording. Plus he also had it transcribed into black and white text for other people to work with them and looking at it and seeing, well, what else was done there? So really, he had the guard a bang to rights on what went on at that incident alone. Whatever about the fact that the guard laterally then inferred that the car didn't stop.
Yeah, I think it's just a point that can't be stressed enough. It's so important with regard to being able to defend yourself. It ceases to be the case then that it's his word against yours.
Absolutely.
And that's so important, because let's face it, what side is the state going to take when presented with a case presented by the state versus somebody who's not on the side of the state? I mean, we all know what ensues then.
Well, it was interesting for us to listen to these recordings, because, like, we would never judge people when they come to talk to us. Like yourself, we just don't judge people. We look at the facts. And first thing we said, well, let's hear the recording. And not just that, we want to read the transcript, because sometimes these recordings can be kind of muffled.
Yeah.
So if you're reading the transcript in line with the recording, you'll often pick up mistakes as well that the transcript has made, or vice versa. So it was vital for us, before we got into this case, to listen to what Tom was saying, whether or not he was actually attacking the guard verbally or abusing the guard. And once we heard the recording, we realised, well, actually Tom was actually just asking simple questions that the guard didn't want to deal with. He didn't want to answer. And that gave us a lot of confidence to know, well, you know, Tom was not breaking the law.
Yeah.
There was nothing there that could be pinned on him in terms of being aggressive or acting in a criminal manner. And that's, I suppose, when people are listening to this podcast, this recording, we will get people looking at this thing and, right, these are just guys that are, you know, neither here nor there. They're trying to put one up on the guards. It's not about that. We critically look at what people do. And I would always sit across from somebody and say, well, actually, is that the truth? You know, did that really happen? And if people can't demonstrate to me that it did in black and white, I would say there is the door. Because I cannot work, and you cannot work, none of us can work with people that are lying to you. You know, if somebody does something wrong, we were talking about this earlier about being at school and when you do something wrong and you do something right. If somebody does something wrong, they should say, yeah, I did it wrong. I got it wrong. Okay. None of that is inexcusable. You know, you can't excuse if somebody says, well, I did it wrong, I shouldn't have done it wrong, I apologise. Let's move on. You can do that. And we can do that. But equally, if a guard does something wrong, he should be able to say, yeah, I did it wrong. Sorry about that. My sincerest apologies. Will you forgive me? They should actually be able to say that. You know,
and to me, that's humanity.
Absolutely.
That's people dealing with other people on a human level, as opposed to the machinery of state versus the slave, if you want to put it that way.
They have to simply say, I made a mistake. I'm sincerely sorry. It won't happen again. And
it's not an easy thing to do, and you have to learn that ability. You really do. Like, 3 of the hardest words to say in the English language in combination are I was wrong. It's a really difficult thing to do, but the more people do it, the better the communication between people, the better relationships become. I don't just mean romantic relationships, I mean relationships in general. And why should it be any different when dealing with a Garda? Why can't we have a good relationship with the Gardaí? Why can't that be the case? It can be the case, but not when people are not willing to admit when they're wrong, because there is right and there's wrong, and that's pretty black and white. I mean, if something isn't right, it's wrong, and vice versa.
Well, let's just summarise or reiterate the position again. Tom was on the road going to a place to see some of his friends. He was stopped in the middle of the road, and he did stop, and we asked people to question the validity of the guards to being able to stop anybody on the road.
Yep.
Then the guard indicated that he was to proceed. He did. He was followed by the guards up the road. The guards indicated that they wanted him to pull in. He pulled in. The guard wanted to drag him out of the car, and he didn't manage to do it. Tom told the guard he's going to pull off away from the guard for his own protection. He was just afraid of the guard. And he warned the guard to take his foot out of the door, and Tom then slowly pulled away, and he did so slowly because we challenged Tom on this. Did you pull away? Did you put the guard's life in danger? Blah, 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 so on and so forth. So that he was challenged on that. You know, was there any malicious act on your part? And there was not. Tom was trying to get away to get to a public place, so as that if the guards did pursue him, it would be done in public where everybody could see. So that concludes that part, I think. You know, that brings it up to date.
I think so, and it sets us up very nicely then for what happens. And there's a lot that happens, so I'll be very much looking forward to the next episodes. Don't forget, keep your feedback coming. You can get your hands on the book with the links below, as always, and we are taking very careful note of all the feedback that's coming in. We will be doing some episodes which will be Q&A sessions, and we'll address a lot of the questions then as best we can. So your feedback is hugely valuable, and it helps us. I mean, one of the reasons we go off on these perceived tangents is quite often in response to some of the feedback we're getting. There are issues that come up time and time again that people may be unclear on, so we do seek to clarify then. So keep that coming. It's the lifeblood of what we do, and the CLS talks, of course, won't exist unless we have listeners who are constantly interacting with us. So thank you for listening. Des, I'll be looking forward to our next chat.
Thanks very much, Lionel. Thanks for having me on again.
It's always a pleasure.
CLS